Thanks for allowing me into your home. I'm Darren Watts. Uh, I wanted to take a moment and do this video because we have seen a lot of racism in America. We've seen it a lot, but a lot has not been done. So a lot of people are trying to go out and protest and try to make the voices heard. And I'm doing it in a far more different way than what most people are doing it. They're actually literally going out to the streets and organizing uh, things to start protesting. I like to do it through social media, video recordings, and interviews to talk about racism and how things can be fixed. For me, I would like to take a moment and talk about that. But even before I get into that, I want to take a moment to thank David Swisher for allowing me a video platform to be able to talk about racism. He I've known David Swisher since 2018, February 2018, in fact, is when I first met him to be a part of the production team. And he gravely understands this issue of racism and asked me to do this video in recognition to racism so we can, all work together to help. And I willingly say yes. After MLK was assassinated, 110 American cities started rioting, caused $47 million of damages, and on the sixth day, the Civil Rights Act of 1968 passed. But do you see how long it took for something to happen just by riots? It's If you're not heard, you're gonna make sure that you're heard, and it's disappointing that it has to happen this way, but you have to understand that when racism exists, which I'm gonna be sharing a story in a minute of mine about the experience that I had with racial slur and just flat out racial discrimination. It's humiliating, it's embarrassing, and it's just like, what did we do wrong to be black? Why why people don't love us as black? I don't know. I don't have the answer to that. A lot of police officers just discriminate based off my skin color. Brown, some people black. It's really not fair. We live in America. We should be able to live our lives just like anybody else. Systematic racism exists. It it exists. Now, the one thing a lot of people don't understand is just because we're not picking cotton and being called the N word, do not mean that racism still exists. It's just creatively been reformed in a way where racism still exists. And these two examples could probably shed some light behind it, along with um, a quote that I saw that I thought would be very important to share because it shows a lot about different cultures and different types of situations. So let me start with my story about racism. The first instance that I had was with somebody at work that I worked with at one point, and this was over 10 years ago. Actually, it's been over 20 years ago. Come think of no, not yet. It's been over 10 years ago, and I was at work. This was maybe 2 or 3 months into me starting the new job. Excuse me, and a white man comes to my door because I'm guarded. I was a security guard, and I asked him that instead of coming to these doors because these doors are closed, can go to the next set of doors down the hall? He's riding on the them electric trucks that they have, and he mouthed off and did not like that I asked him to go to the next set of doors because those set of doors was being set up for, I think at that time was an exhibit, and didn't want nobody to just come in and, you know, first thing they see is them instead of the exhibit hall. So, but anyway, um, he didn't like that, so he went down those doors, and then he came back and then said, "Brown sugar has a lot in common with me because I'm sweet and brown." Now, I didn't know how to take that, so I went and asked the second source about it, and they said that's automatically a racial slur, and you should report it. So that's exactly what I did. Went to my on duty manager and said, "Hey, I've been called a racial slur," and he was shocked by it, and then said this, that we will not go forth with the complaint. This was later. We will not go forth with the complaint because of their union being publicly humiliated during this time, being publicly humiliated, being embarrassed, shame, and a lot of anger. While this white guy just walked around very powerful and proud and did not even apologize for it. I had to I had to still show professionalism, and I still worked for that job for an additional 10 years before I finally quit. Um, it's something that I will never forget. And I tried to always put it in the back of my mind, but it's there and it's not going away. Another instance, and this is the last instance that I've experienced because I don't go out much. Another instance is with the Speedway police officer. For those that are not watching um, from my local state, it was in Speedway, Indiana. So another instance that I had with the Speedway police is that they illegally searched my car for drugs that my brother and I had. Now the reason that they pulled us over was legal, and that was for a taillight out. Fine. Okay. I'm expecting the ticket and move on. All of a sudden, the officer comes back and says, "I smell marijuana. Do you have any drugs in the car?" "No, we do not." "Okay, I'm gonna have to ask you to step out of the car." Stepped out of the car, and so they're placing us under arrest pending an investigation. "I didn't know you was investigating us. What are you investigating us for? A possible uh, narcotic in the car. You smelled marijuana knowing that we don't have any." This is the example of injustice that we have. The officer should have just wrote a ticket and sent us along. Um, the fact that he even called more backup just to make sure, just in case, because he put my brother and I in handcuffs. And when that happened, I was just like, you gotta be kidding me. This turned it from a traffic ticket to an investigation. How do this happen? And this happened to a lot of Black people for traffic, violations that turns into something that has nothing to do with the other. One hand washes the other hand. I just do not, that frustrates me more than anything. That's the injustice we face every single day, being judged by our skin color. If you watch the news, you see in Philadelphia that two Black men walked into Starbucks and the police got called on them just because they walked in there and didn't know nothing. That was the color of their skin. It's little things like that. Sitting while Black, gardening while Black, swimming while Black. There are so many news segments. If you took a moment and went to YouTube, you could see so many examples of issues that Black people face every single day. So, my advice, if you really want to learn about it, is to learn about the culture, learn about Black people. Go to the African American Museum and learn a lot about what Black people had to deal with during slavery and during our current times, because you see it on the news, and it don't take much to find something on the news saying that somebody called the police on a Black man walking on the street, or something they said is illegal hanging off their mirror, their rearview mirror, the one at the top, not the one on the sides, not the extended mirrors, but the ones on at the top. Um, just so many different things that Black people have to go through. And one more important thing um, to learn about is not to take offense to anything that I say or any Black person says about um, racism, because a lot of it don't pertain to all white people. It pertains to the majority of the white people um, that are racist but tend to hide it. To me, consider waves the Confederate flag of hatred and things like that. Them are the people that these are really referred to, the KKK and all of them. This is who they're with. This is mainly those types of people that are that are racist and show that they show some type of hate towards rather if it's African Americans, Native Americans, any type of Black person, Asian American, whatever. That's something to always consider, not to take anything personal. And the ones that will take something personal is the ones that we're talking to on the behalf of being racist and learning about racism. But them are just my advice. There's one thing that I read that I want to share with everybody about the different people that are saying that all lives matter and things like that. I shared something that earlier, but I want to share one more thing. For all my all lives matter folks, when the Boston Marathon was bombed, everybody profile went Boston strong, but nobody said all cities are strong. When Las Vegas shooting happened, people changed their profiles. Stand for Vegas. Nobody said, well, what about the people that got shot in my city? Have you ever seen someone counter a breast cancer post with, what about colon cancer? But for some reason, if someone says Black Lives Matter and turn to an all-inclusive, all lives matter, it's not an either or explanation or proclamation. When there is a crisis and we always have rallied around that in particular group, it doesn't discredit or diminish any other group. It just brings awareness to support other groups that needs attention. And that's what most people seem not to understand. When you have an issue at hand, and this is about the Black culture, when you have something that is really in the way of disruption, you have to be able to open your eyes and just say, hey, this is a really big issue. This is a really big issue. It needs to be addressed. Instead of what I hear a lot of is people disrespecting the flag, and when it don't have nothing to do with the flag, has absolutely nothing to do with the flag. It has everything to do with the way that we pledge of allegiance to that flag, to our flag anyway, of the United States of America. Because the one thing that it says is one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Justice for all, but y'all say all lives matter. Let's think about this thoroughly. All lives matters mean that everybody's lives should be equal and that anything that happens, we all should be protesting about. But here's something to think about. It took 74 days for the Ahmed Arbery case for somebody to finally get arrested, 3 people to get arrested. And just because they got arrested, the video was released. The video got released, and then that's when the arrest happened. Now, how did that happen? 74 days. Really? 74 days after the fact that it happened. If that video never would have came out, that would be in a complete injustice. Another example, Breonna Taylor case. Nobody got arrested for that. No knock warrant. No knock. No. Come in. None of that. Just bust down the door. And you think about this, because a lot of people was like, well, the police officers was using self-defense. Not exactly. Breonna Taylor's boyfriend was using self-defense, because when you hear somebody busting in your door, you don't normally think about police, you think about robbers. And the first thing you're going to do is defend yourself. So that's what he did. In result, that fires back from the officers because they felt their lives were in danger, but they failed to understand and realize that they had a no-knock warrant, so they just bust right in. The crime for what was being committed, that they felt that was being committed in the middle of an investigation, did not warrant them to kill anybody. And in the result, they killed Breonna Taylor in her sleep. I think it was 7 or 8 times. In her sleep, she was sleeping, unarmed. Again, unarmed. She's killed. Injustice. Where's the justice? And nobody got arrested. Officers just got fired and probably working for a whole nother department. Talk about injustice. And talk about the flag, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Where's that at? Where? Where's the justice? And then the George Floyd case. These are just recent ones. Sandra Bland. Think about them. Think about the hurt. Think about them never coming back again. Their families are torn apart by the racial injustice. It hurts. They never get to see them again. Meanwhile, the officers that did these crimes could see their families. They're on the street, free, one with a man. No justice, no peace, which is partially the reason why a lot of people was rioting. Again, I don't condone violence and rioting, but if your voices are not being heard, you're going to make sure that they're heard. It happens in sports. It happens at the workplace. It happens everywhere. The main point of it all is that our voices are not being heard, and we need to be heard. Remember, a peaceful protest started with Colin Kaepernick in 2016, protesting by kneeling. The President of the United States says he's disrespecting our flag and calling an SOB, and anybody else that kneeled, and made it about the flag. But in an interview after he did it the first time, he said that it's not about the flag. There are so many injustices that the police are getting away with crimes that they are committing. And that's exactly what he said. And that was the warning to everybody in America about racism and police brutality against Black people that he said were not fair at all, and that it needed to be protested. So that's why he did it during the national anthem. But a lot of people still tend to believe that it was about the flag. And these are the very same people that promotes the Confederate flag of hate. See the irony? See where that makes sense? To me, it don't. How can you support a Confederate flag, but then throw a hissy fit when NASCAR decides that they're going to take the Confederate flags away? This is something that should be freely be able to wave around, but it promotes hate. Something that we're protesting against, something that nobody's not listening to or not seeing with their own eyes. How is that justice? How is that right? I guess not. But most people don't see it that way. And this was the opportunity to have a conversation and have people listen to understand the situation. That's what we do. I don't mind talking about it. It's something that I don't talk about, but I don't mind talking about it at all. If I have to talk about it, I will. If I have to get into an interview, I will. But I'm not going to just sit quietly and let this happen. Something has to be done, and especially in churches, there has to be more done. There has to be more action. And I'm going to explain in a second what we can all do in conclusion to this video and how to take next steps, things that you can do to help try to be more supportive, be more voiceful, and be more active in ways to help with racism. So what are the next steps to help take the next steps that you can take to help with racism and Black people in America? Well, one thing that you can do is financial giving and support to local or charities like the NAACP, I think it's Black Urbans and other Black charities to help raise awareness of racism in America. That's one way you can do it. Another way is just by reading books about slavery and different things about Black history. I mentioned earlier the African American Museum, or the Underground Railroad, things like that that can help in understanding, not just in the reading standpoint, but also from an actual visual. Some people are not reading material; they're not people that actually sit down and read, but then there are people that can and will use video as support. So, going on and learning about the Underground Railroad, the African American Museum, and different things like that, you can actually contribute that way. So you can understand the racism and things of possibly what could be white privilege is a way to learn about that. There are podcasts that you can listen to. There are the 619, that's a New York Times podcast about race. Code Switch to NPR, uh, and etc. Intersectionally Matters, that's hosted by Kimberly Crenshaw, and then Momentum, a Race Forward podcast, and a Power for the Cause of Leadership Conference on Civil Human Rights. Pod Save the People. This is based on Crooked Media. Seeing White, Parenting Forward podcast episode 5, Pandemic, Parenting Lessons with Cindy Wayne Branded, and then last but not least, Fair for the Free Child podcast. These are just ways to actually get, lessons. There's also videos out there about systemic racism that can help you understand different things. Here's the thing that is most important that can help: stop racial gaslighting. That is the more bigger important thing out of everything on here. Racial gaslighting shows that you are blinded to a whole lot of things. You hear people that say if you protest or set it peacefully, more people will listen to you. Remember, and earlier in the video, I said in 2016, Colin Kaepernick did just that by kneeling, and everybody threw a fit. Everybody threw a fit. Now that these protests are getting more violent, a lot of people are mad now. We're in a lose-lose situation. We protest peacefully, we go out on the streets, and people are still making a big fuss about it. What I did is not racist. When people say that, it is. And it's just how it is. That's what it is. If you say what I say did is not racist, how is it not? You're going behind Facebook to throw out not protests, but to throw out different issues about police officers and how their lives are that matters more than anybody else. Black on black crime, that has really nothing to do with it. That is two separate issues about black on black crime and racism and police brutality. Them are two completely different things. Because black on black crime do not consist of a black person being killed because of the color of their skin. It's mainly because of something personal or something that happened in that sense. Police brutality and racism happens because of the skin color. They are two completely different things, and that's what people have to understand. So that part of racial gaslighting has to stop. Racism doesn't exist anymore. Again, wrong. Have to remember, just because we're not picking cotton and not being said the N word do not mean that racism has officially ended. It just means that it's just been recreated to be reformed. It was just a joke, calm down. No, because if you said it and it offended me and you say it was just a joke and to calm down, there's no need to issue an apology for that, because you said what you said it from the heart, and that's how you felt. Anybody is racist too. That's a blank. People are racist too. Who is racist on that behalf? Who are you talking about? What makes other people racist? Based on what? Based on what? Why is it always about race? Why shouldn't it be about race? Why is it that I walk out on the street and I'm automatically a target? Why is it that the police officer searched my car illegally, thinking that I'm a black man that does drugs, searched my car knowing that he didn't smell anything from the beginning? Why is it about race? Why is it that white man at my job said that I was racist and not racist. Why did that black man at the job make a racial slur at me? He didn't like the, well, not only did he not like what I suggested to him, but it was because I was black and he didn't like that because he ran an encounter with a lot of white people and did not get as much grief as I did. It was just me that got the grief. Are you sure that's what happened? Are you telling me that I want to change my story, or you don't believe that it happened just because I experienced it? You'll be kidding me right now. And just to play devil's advocate here, that's a dangerous trap. I don't even want to hear the devil's advocate. You're making a debate to make a point about there's no racism. You're trying to change my mind based on something. It don't work like that. When I explain a story like the two stories I've had, the first thing that a lot of people would say about the Speedway police officer, you should not have had a tail light out. Yeah, that may be the case, but you're missing the bigger point here. That should have been a ticket and moved on, not to be illegally searched and then put in handcuffs behind that. That's racism. That's discriminatory to me because you didn't even have calls. You didn't even have calls to do it. None at all whatsoever. You didn't even have calls to do it. And in my opinion, I don't think that they are being racist. I think dot dot dot. Come on. What are you thinking? I don't think police officers are being racist, but I just think, oh, for an example, that maybe somebody had something they had no business having, and the police was doing their job to make sure that everybody was safe. How is that? Hmm? How is that? Explain that. Police is an occupation, just like me as a customer service representative. A lot of people as accountants, lawyers, uh, uh, funeral directors, um, pastors, everything else. I mean, what exactly were you thinking that they were not being racist about? They knew Breonna Taylor and her boyfriend's color when they first went into that apartment and did a no-knock warrant. When George Floyd had his neck kneeled on by a white man, they knew his color. They knew that he wasn't being resistant. They knew that, but they did it anyway. They did it anyway. Trayvon Martin, even though it wasn't about a police officer, George Zimmerman knew that he did not have no weapon on him. He was unarmed. That's what they have in cases. That's in common. They were unarmed. Sandra Bland. There's so many say their names, and it's up on the screen now. There's so many people that were unarmed as black men and women that we're dealing with today and back then. Families still have yet to grieve, not even so much grieve, but a lot of black families are having issues trying to process this. And why is that? Because they don't understand the nature of why police officers think that black people are dangerous. Just like how a lot of people say that police officers are not all bad, neither is black people. It's the exact same way. You want to play tick for tack, but don't realize the tick and reverse tack that most black people have for you. If you say that all police officers are not bad, neither are black people. There's just a few bad apples. We just need to get rid of them. Same with the police department. That's why a lot of people want reforms. So let's be real here. When we talk about racism, do you see the differences in privileges that most white people have versus black? I almost went to jail for a crime that I didn't even commit for having drugs, because that would have not been a part of that report of mm, uh, tail light out. Well, yeah, it would have been, because that would have been the setup of the motive. Racism exists, and it's hard to be black in America. It's hard to be black, to be discriminated, to be afraid to walk out on the street to see if you're going to be discriminated by a white person when you go to a grocery store, or if you get pulled over by the police. I dread it a lot. I dread it. So when we think about racism, what more can we do? Support Black businesses and voting to get the right people in. And it, most importantly, with racial gaslighting, just stop lecturing and be empathetic about the things that are going on right now. Because these are stories to be empathized about with the people that are being killed while being Black. Thank you for listening and thank you for allowing me into your homes. Again, I'm Darren. Feel free if you have any thoughts, questions, I'd be more than glad to answer them. Um, I'm here. So thank you for your time and thank you for listening.